Well, thank you for joining the Montclair City Council meeting this evening. We'll get this meeting to order. We'll begin with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll have the city clerk announce those two individuals.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Jaime Saravia of Truth Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Lopez.
Great, please stand.
Good evening, Mayor. On me. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we acknowledge the vital role of prayer in our city council meetings. Grant our leaders the discernment of recognize the importance of seeking your guidance before making crucial decisions. May this practice foster a sense of responsibility and accountability, ensuring that our community's needs are met. James chapter 1, verse 5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Please join me in reciting the pledge of our great flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Can I have roll call, please?
Mendez?
Here.
Councilmember Lopez?
Here.
Councilmember Rue?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez? Here. And Mayor Dutray.
Present. Okay, next item on the agenda is presentations. We have two presentations. We'll start with a presentation by Supervisor Kurt Hagman, and then we'll have a presentation to recognize the 2024 Holiday Food and Toy Basket Program. So can the council please join me in the bottom? First of all, I want to recognize not a council member, he used to be a council member in the city of Chino Hills, then became a member of the state assembly, and now he's our county supervisor of the 4th district, which represents obviously Montclair along with Ontario, Chino Hills, Chino, and parts of Upland. He's also the president of the Southern California Association of Governments. He's also a member of the South Coast Air Quality Management District Governing Board, and I serve with him on Ombutrans and the San Diego County Transportation Authority Board. So I want to give this mic to our county supervisor, Kurt Hagman.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, residents. We always like to partner up with our cities, and I know public safety is the top priority for the city of Montclair. You have excellent departments, both the police and fire department. And when you came and said, can we help with your new equipment? Because you have all this new construction and 4-story buildings, you need a ladder truck. So we have a little presentation for you. And we're glad to be a partner with the great city of Montclair.
All of our fire personnel, come on down. Come join us here. Don't be shy. In addition to our chiefs. Come on down. Don't be shy. Find a place. Ryan, why don't you come over here? Ryan, why don't you come over in the middle? You want to stay right here in the middle? Oops, sorry about that. You can hold that. All right. We'll balance on this side here. We have all the big guys on this side here. Is this the basketball team here on the right side? Well, great. Can I get some?
Thank you very much.
Oh, in the front.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, y'all. This way. Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate, don't go too far. Appreciate that. Of course, I was asking the chief, why is the fire personnel here today? I thought maybe we were recognizing a new employee. since it wasn't on the agenda, and I didn't realize that we had a check here for the ladder truck. So again, Supervisor Hackman, we appreciate it. Obviously, it's half the money. The other half we'll work on ourselves or through other means of grants, probably not federal grants anymore, but we'll work on trying to get that ladder truck and get the money for it. But thank you for being here.
No,
You got more money for us?
no. I was going to say that, I got to go doing the christenings for that. You got to walk to the edge of it, so I look forward to seeing you when they have it extended to go out there. What do you think? You can put them on there? Okay. That could be a good fundraiser. Have the mayor go on the ladder.
Well, I'm going to follow Kurt. Kurt's going to go first. I'll be right behind him. But we're going to move on to the next presentation, which Kurt's also part of this, or Supervisor Hageman. But tonight we're going to recognize 5 of our top donors to the holiday food and toy basket program, all of which donate over $1,000 each through their generous donations and donations of many other businesses and community members. The Montclair Community Foundation was able to raise nearly $18,000, and that served over 120 families, which included over 500 individuals from those families by providing them with boxes of food for a traditional holiday dinner and toys individualized to each child to make the holiday season special. This program runs 100% on donations from our community, and obviously we're very grateful to be able to serve those most needed here in Montclair. So I'd like to call the representatives of each of the organizations to the front to present you with the certificate. So I'm going to start with Supervisor Kurt Hagman. Come on over here, right in the middle. Thank you. There you go. You're good. You want to shake hands? Thank you. The next one is, I apologize if I mispronounced this, Major Adobo Inc. Are they here? Come on up. Did I say it correctly? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Right here, we'll take a picture. Very much. Appreciate it. Next, I know this quite well, is IT Tony. There they are, IT Tony Recovery. Come on up. Thank you very much. There you are. Thank you. One is Azor Foot Ankle Specialist. Are they here? Azar, excuse me. Thank you. Azar, no? All right. And the last one here, Top Golf Ontario. Is Top Golf here? There they are. All right. Everybody has ever been to the Top Golf in Ontario? Play Top Golf there? On behalf of the Montclair City Council and the whole Montclair community, we appreciate all 5 of you and your donations that you did for this great cause. Thank you again. And with that, presentations. If you want to leave now, this is a good time.
can do a photo. She's one of the high school students.
Oh, you want to do a photo real fast? You gotta say a little louder than that. Come on, we'll come down and do a photo for you. I believe you're
Proof that she was here.
All right, come on over in the middle. We'll try in the middle here. We'll impress the class. Hopefully you get an A+ on this assignment.
That's a phone, so.
You like government class? All right. Good luck. Good luck. Are you a senior? Yes. All right. So 3 more months for the open night in June. So almost done. All right. And in college afterwards? All right. Which school?
Which college? Oh, good for you.
Extend your dollar, basically.
One gives you the most scholarships.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for the members of the public to speak on any item on the agenda, including items on the consent calendar. You have 5 minutes. If any items are not on the agenda, per the Brown Act, we can't discuss it. So at this time, I'm going to ask the city clerk to see if she has any speakers.
I have one speaker card from Donato Jimenez.
All right. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Donato Jimenez. I live at 9721 Monte Vista. I wanted to bring up two situations. Not situations, concerns. One is the ongoing traffic on Monte Vista and San Bernardino. I've been told there is 23 citations given out in the last 2.5 months. But I continue to see ongoing truck traffic throughout the day. I have timestamp pictures that I keep recording. There's days where I don't see any citations. I've never seen one citation. I don't see any of the truck traffic slowing down. And it's also concerning when it comes to the bottleneck right there that everybody complains about and where you guys are requesting funds from the state to fix. I don't think there would be such a bottleneck if there wasn't so much truck traffic. My concerns are, I don't see anything improving or getting done. I mean, 23 citations in 2.5 months, I can count probably 25 trucks that pass through my street every day. Another thing is, I'm a construction worker. I wake up at 2:30 in the morning. There's times where I drive out to Thousand Oaks. I gotta be there at 5. I'm asleep by 8 o'clock. I can hear these tanker trucks coming down my street at 8 o'clock at night, waking me up. It's very disturbing and very concerning. Another reason why I'm here is the funds that you guys are requesting to fix that bottleneck. The last 2.5 years, I've been working on a project where I'm building my own ADU. And then when I say I'm building my own ADU, I'm building this with my bare hands. I'm not hiring a contractor. I've invested probably over $150,000 into this project. And not once has the city of Montclair came to me and told me that you guys are requesting funds to take over my house and my 3 other neighbors. That is very disturbing. I invested a lot of money and I invested a lot of my time, and not once has anybody mentioned it to me till recently. And I'm just here to let you guys know that I'm not interested in selling. I know my neighbors to the right and to the left are not interested in selling. They've been there for over 20 years. So those are my concerns, and you guys take it into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other speakers? That's the only one you have?
That was the only card.
Okay. Then we'll go right into the consent calendar of the agenda. And I'm going to ask that one item be pulled for a presentation. That'll be the C2, which is the C2. This is regarding the JPA Animal Resources Center. So I'm gonna have that pulled, and we'll have a separate discussion and action on that one. So, in my left, anybody want to pull a consent calendar item? No? No?
No.
Okay, how about my right?
C1 for a question.
C1? Okay. Okay, let's
The
start with,
item I was interested in was already pulled, so.
okay, so C1. Let's start with C1 then, and that's yours,
Just
Councilor
finding my
Lopez.
page real quickly. On page, it's one of three of the agreement, but it's page 17 of the binder packet. The whereas, it states, whereas owner desires to annex to the city of Montclair, and then the second whereas, the city intends to pursue annexation of the owner's property plus other property, but said annexation would cause a delay, which would create a substantial hardship for the owner of said property. So if I understand correctly, the owner wishes to annex in. I wanted to know what the impediments were to the annexation.
We haven't entered the process of annexation or considering that at this point, and she needs to have her sewer connected, her property connected to sewer because her septic tank is failing. So that's the urgency behind this particular request.
Okay. In the future, though, well, based on this, if I think I read correctly, we will eventually annex this?
It's part of our sphere of influence, so at some point in time in the future, it'll become part of the city.
Okay. All right, that was just my understanding. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, then can I get a motion for the consent calendar with exception C2?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion for the consent calendar as presented, the C.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilman Roos, seconded by Councilman Lopez. Electronic vote. All please vote. Okay, that's adopted 5-0. Now we'll go to item C2. Again, this is regarding the Animal Resource Center JPA. And Mr. Starr, can you give us a little presentation of this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, there are a number of recommendations in relation to this item. Each of them are detailed both in the subject heading and in the summary recommendation of the report. But effectively, staff is asking that council consider approval agreement number 25-10. This would be with the Animal Resources Center of the Inland Empire. That is a JPA that was recently started up by the cities of Chino and Ontario. They have asked other cities in the area whether or not they want to consider joining this JPA. The JPA would provide animal control services, sheltering services, canvassing services, and a number of other services related to the provision of animal control and regulation-related services for the cities that are part of the JPA. For the city of Montclair to consider joining the JPA, there would be an initial capital contribution requirement, and then there would be ongoing capital outlay annual requirement related to membership in the JPA. Obviously, as a member of the Inland Valley Humane Society, the organization that we are currently a member of, there is also an annual appropriation that is necessary for the city to be a part of the IVHS. So the fact that there would be those cost components would not be unusual for the council to consider going forward. And then in order for us to pay off the capital contribution, which is $4.3 million, staff's recommendation would be that the city council consider a $2 million allocation out of the lease revenue bond funds and then pay off the remaining $2.3 million over 10 years. The ARC, which is the acronym for Animal Resource Center, has agreed for a 10-year payoff schedule. However, I will also say that there are some other agencies that have demonstrated interest in joining the ARC. They have indicated to Ontario and Chino that they would not be able to pay off their balance in 10 years. So they are asking for ARC to consider a 15 to 20-year payoff balance. And if that is the case, then that would extend to the city of Montclair as well. So right now, we'll operate on the cost model 1, which is based on the fact that there would only be 4 agencies in the ARC JPA, and that would be the cities of Chino, Ontario, Montclair, should the council approve this action this evening, and San Bernardino County has also asked to be a member of the ARC JPA for the purposes of providing animal control services on the west end of San Bernardino County. So under that model, our contribution for capital costs would go towards the $43 million construction of the facilities for animal shelters, animal control, and administrative offices for property that the City of Ontario is looking at acquiring within their boundaries. There was an offer from the County of San Bernardino for approximately 10 acres that would be part of their contribution to the ARC. However, the property is adjacent to the airport, and the ARC had made the determination that that location would not be conducive to the health of the animals because of the constant noise generated by airport traffic. So they turned down that request and have made the determination that they would buy land in a different location in Ontario that would be more conducive to providing the necessary services. And then the city's annual contribution or payment under the four-agency scenario would be approximately $500,000 on an annual basis, which, based on the 15% increase that we would be receiving from the Inland Valley Humane Society for this next fiscal year, it's equivalent to the $500,000 as well. So either way, the annual contribution would be $500,000. However, I do also want to make note that the Inland Valley Humane Society was contemplating implementing a percentage increase related to share of services that are used. They had indicated that Montclair would be receiving an increase in relation to that because they allege that our services have increased proportionally in comparison to other agencies. I estimate that not only would we receive the 15% increase this year, but in 2026, 27, when this particular fee component will go into effect, it very likely, in conjunction with the CPI increase and other component increases that are in their contract, we could be looking at a 25% increase in 26, 27, which would take our costs up to about $600,000. I don't see that level of increase in relation to being a member of the ARC. In fact, if other agencies do join the ARC, and there are two other agencies that are currently in conversation with the ARC JPA about joining, then our capital contribution, depending on those cost models, and they are indicated in the agenda report, both in the discussion, in the recommendations, as well as in discussion on those cost models and what our contribution would be, we could decline potentially from the $500,000 in our annual contribution to $360,000 in the annual contribution. So that would be a good number in the opposite direction. And then our contribution for capital would also decrease, and that number, as indicated on page 25 of your agenda packet, could potentially decline to $4.1 million. Then under a six-agency scenario, our capital contribution could decline to $3.6 million, and our annual contribution would be about $392,000. So those are good numbers if we have other agencies joining. That's just two additional agencies. If other agencies out of the 11 that are currently part of the IVH also want to join, one, they would need to let ARC know now because they need to plan on building for that capacity. But if they choose to elect to contract down the road, and ARC has not made that determination, that they would agree to contract with other agencies. Their preference is that agencies be a part of the JPA and share the capital contribution costs and not just be a contract agency. If you are a contract agency, then your capital contribution, your annual contribution would be significantly higher, though, than the JPA members. So that would be something for those agencies to contemplate. But in any event, the preference is that everybody be a JPA member. So with other agencies potentially joining, out of the 11, those numbers again could decline even more. My guess is that we are likely to end up with a six-agency JPA, at least in the short term. If the cities of Ontario and Chino, which currently represent the ARC, agree to allow those agencies to make their capital contributions over a 15 to 20-year period instead of the 10-year that it's currently being focused on. And the last meeting I attended with the member agencies, they are giving favorable consideration to extending the amount of time for payback on the capital contribution. So I do expect that maybe we will see other agencies coming into the ARC. The agenda report includes the terms of the agreement that have been represented to the city by the ARC for consideration. The ARC was actually formed on August 1st when Ontario and Chino got together and decided that after Ontario received a notice from the IVHS that they were terminating their contract, Ontario had to take decisive action, so that's when they started conversation with other agencies about forming this JPA. Ontario and Chino formed that JPA in August. In September of last year, the city, along with Claremont and Chino Hills, actually went to make a presentation before the IVHS board to ask for additional time. So in other words, an extension to our agreement, which expires in July 2025, although it does have an automatic 2-year extension. We were asking for an extension for all agencies, including Ontario, so that we could jointly sit down with the IVHS to talk about alternatives and maybe getting back on the same page with IVHS where they respond to our needs and our requirements as opposed to being more arbitrary in the way that they deal with the cities. The IVHS said no, they were not interested in extending a contract to Ontario. Ontario was done as of July 2025. And furthermore, an email was sent to all of the member agencies that if in fact you are actually engaging in conversation with Ontario about forming a JPA, we don't want you as part of the IVHS and we will be terminating your contract effective July 2025. So that kind of left a number of cities in a position where we either have to make the decision to stay with the IVHS or we enter into an agreement with Ontario and Chino and join this JPA. So in November, Montclair did send a notice to the ARC JPA that we were interested in joining the JPA. And then in December of 2024, the JPA approved a resolution admitting both the county and Montclair. And then pursuant to the terms of the bylaws of ARC JPA, in January of 2021, both the cities of Chino and Ontario and their respective governing boards also had to take action to approve allowing additional agencies to join, and those two governing boards did approve admitting San Bernardino County and the city of Montclair into the ARC JPA. Now the item has come to the City Council for your consideration, and if the council makes the decision tonight to join the ARC JPA, then we would enter into the agreement and be a part of the 4-agency JPA. San Bernardino County is also considering that in front of their board this month as well. They may have actually already taken action on it, but I do know that this is the month where San Bernardino County would be making that decision also. So the fiscal impact for the agency would be the $500,000 annual contribution, which could go lower, and the capital contribution of $4.3 million, which again, as I indicated, we would pay $2 million now and $2.3 over the next 10 years. Could be 15 or 20, depending on whether or not Ontario and Chino make the decision to extend it to allow these two other agencies to join. The council does have the option, of course, of remaining with the IVHS with the understanding that there will be a 15% increase that will be equivalent to the $500,000 membership for our annual contribution with the ARC JPA. But in the following year, that number is going to go up significantly, I estimate by at least another $100,000. And then if other agencies do leave the IVHS, then those numbers are going to increase even further, because if fewer agencies are part of the IVHS umbrella, then when they do their percentage usage recalculation, then those agencies that are remaining with the IVHS are simply going to have a larger share of services that they're requiring from the IVHS because there are now fewer agencies. And I would expect that the increases for those agencies are going to be very significant. And for an agency like Montclair, if we were one of the few agencies that remained with IVHS, we could be looking at something like $700,000, $800,000 increases within a couple of years. So to me, at this point in time, my recommendation would be the City Council that you strongly consider membership with the ARC JPA based on the other components of the recommendation, including having the city council appoint a board member and an alternate member to the JPA. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I'll start with Councilmember Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I think this is a very good idea. I have, in my many, many years of living, have had many different pets in my life. I am an animal advocate. Many of you on this council know that. I've done some foster and rescue in my life, and I presently believe that we are better served by another entity. This is not a black mark on IVHS. I just feel that our community will be better served. One of the questions I have, and you've sort of answered it, this is not specific to a county line.
No, in fact, well, I don't want to name the other cities that are looking at doing
I have
this.
an idea who
Yeah.
they are.
And the reason why I don't is because of the email that was sent out, that if we find out that you are in conversation in relation to joining the JPA, we're done with you and we're going to terminate your contract. It's not for me to expose those agencies.
Right. I have an idea who they are because of other things I do in my life, but I'm glad to hear it is not county-specific because it allows flexibility for the future. We don't know. I can't predict what's going to happen in 10 years from now. The whole animal situation is very fluid. A question I have also is for large animals, horses, goats, things of that sort, would this ARC eventually be able to take those? I'm looking at a situation like Fairplex was able to do with the recent fires. They were able to take in large animals. I know somebody who had she lives in Altadena, and her horse was actually at the Fairplex. Other people with, animals of that kind, goats, things of that sort, would the ARC be able to take that in?
Yeah, so I would think that that would be a priority consideration of the county of San Bernardino because that is where the bulk of the farm-type animals would be.
Right.
So yes, the ARC would have to make provisions for that. Now, in July of 2025, they will be in temporary facilities until the permanent facilities are completed. It may be difficult during that first year, but as we transition or as the ARC transitions into the permanent facilities, then yes, that capacity would be there.
Because heaven forbid we have a natural disaster in this area. I'm sure we could still work out things with the Fairplex because they've been very good with many, when Orange County had fires a few years ago, they're very good at taking in the animals. So that is something that's important. I agree with them as far as a site such as something near the Ontario airport would not be good for the animals because animals in a shelter are under stress as it is, and we don't need to add to their stress anymore. This is a positive. I look at the costs of this, and for many years, even our prior city manager, Mr. McDougall, knew this. I was not happy with some of the costs that we were bearing on the service we were getting. To me, a cost and a service should be related. There should be a nexus on it, just as we have to provide a nexus on certain things we do. So this, to me, is a positive. Anything I can do in any of my worlds to do this, if there's a need for an alternate, I would be very willing to do that. I believe that the people I talk to in Montclair, most of them are not happy with the current level of service they're getting. This is, again, not a ding on IVHS. This is what I hear from residents in our community who are not happy with the service. I think there are things down the line we can do with this. I will refrain from trying to engage in what that should be at this point. I know that many residents in Montclair are good pet owners and do the right thing. There are some who aren't. And I think something like this ARC would be a benefit so that the good pet owners, such as myself and most of us up here, are not in a position where we are almost penalized for the bad ones. It would also give an incentive for the bad pet owners to step up and do what needs to be done. And then the last thing, and it's just very minor, this is called the ARC, Animal Resource Center. And I always think of the ARC as in Noah when it comes to animals. So I also like the name. Thank you.
Well, I will say that their motto right now is an ark with a pair of animals on it, cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
think that's going to be
perfect.
their permanent logo, but it is the
That's
temporary logo.
perfect. As I say, and most of you up here know I'm an animal lover.
Okay, let's go with Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Thank you. So as of now, we haven't had a response from IVHS as to the one-year contract request. So my question, just from a practical standpoint, is do you think that the temporary facility would be able to accommodate what we might need in the meantime until any other building is constructed?
So there are two one-year requests, and one was the original one where we asked that they just extend the contracts for 1 year so that we can meet with them and discuss alternatives to try and stay with them, or if that wasn't going to work, go somewhere else. So that one has been already resolved. The answer is no. No, there's no one-year extensions on the agreements. The other extension was submitted recently, and that is, will you contract with us for shelter services for 1 year or early until we get the permanent facilities completed? And there hasn't, to my knowledge, as of this date, there has not been a response to that request. So the presumption is that, no, that's not something that they are willing to do, and we need to go with that presumption. A temporary facility has been leased. It's a warehouse, and there will be shelter facilities that will be placed in there. Animal control services and having people driving the trucks, that's easy to do. We can do that next month if that's what we needed to do. It was the shelter services that were important, and the warehouse is going to be a big part of that. And that will be leased for the year or longer if necessary. And the hope and expectation is that the permanent facilities will be completed by July 2026. If not, we stay in the warehouse until the permanent facilities are completed. So I think the short answer is that yes, we believe that we will be able to put forth a viable program of services effective July 1, 2025. Not the ideal circumstances. An executive director has been hired, and that executive director is already putting the programs in place. He's hired his administrative staff, and then going forward, we'll hire the necessary animal control personnel and acquire the trucks. And the shelters will probably be simplified cages in the warehouse in the short term, with the staffing necessary to take care of them. But the permanent facilities will be much grander and something we believe that the agencies will be proud of.
And that would have been my next question, is staffing. I know it's difficult for everyone to get staffing levels met, but that's not going to be an issue there?
Yeah, well, no, so far it hasn't, and I'm only speculating here, and I have no evidence that this is the case, but I would presume that the IVHS is going to have to downsize, and that would probably mean that there are a number of people there who will be looking for employment.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
On the employment comment you just made now, with the assumed likelihood that IVHS would probably downsize because of the loss of revenue stream from members leaving and staff leaving as well, I would hope that should those employees find employment with ARC, just saying if they were, that the level of service that we've unfortunately come to know is IVHS doesn't follow the staffing. And I'll take heat if someone wants to throw that at me with respect to my comment, but we want to improve service times, treatment of pets and animals at the facility, all the way down the line. And in order to do that, maybe we just need to start fresh, and I would hope that would be the case. A few comments, though. I was going to ask what cities were considering joining, but I heard your statement. That said, I take it IVHS then, given your statement about not outing the other agencies, have they just bluntly denied or terminated our relationship with them as a form of retaliation?
Terminated hours? No.
No?
They would like us to stay, and I would say that they've sort of walked back from that email, because we brought it up at the meeting in September that it was offensive to us. And while they did not respond to much of anything that we had to say, I think they did get the message, at least on that particular point, that that's not how you professionally communicate with agencies that you're in a contractual relationship with, that we have the right to exercise our fiduciary responsibility. And part of a fiduciary responsibility is to periodically go out and test the waters and see what's available, and can you provide the same service or a superior service at a more efficient cost. And you can't deny us of that fiduciary responsibility, and we are going to exercise that. And I think that they heard that, and they heard it maybe as a slap on the hand, and sort of backed off on that.
So how soon will the ARC be up and running? I basically want to know for our Montclair residents, because there are some, when there was this limbo state, I think even the mayor may have seen the posts on social media. Some residents of ours were complaining about finding animals that were picked up by, I forgot which agency, but allegedly them being forwarded all the way to Devore, the shelter in Devore, and that Montclair animals had to be found in Devore now because Montclair's relationship with IVHS is in limbo or terminated, and that was the gist of the post. So there is some chatter out there with respect to this new entity coming along to provide animal services. So they would like to know, how soon would we be free from IVHS and quickly under ARC's membership with the full-fledged run-of-the-mill of services from ARC?
So if the council approves this item, then it would be effective July 1, 2025, and the ARC would be providing the necessary services. I'm not going to say it probably won't be rough during the first year because of the temporary facilities, but we will work towards building the same level of service that I think that we are at least receiving now under the IVHS, with the expectation that because we are a JPA that is controlled and regulated by cities and not by a nonprofit agency, our focus will entirely be on providing services to cities. IVH has to split their commitments. We are merely an adjunct to what their program is about. They are about animals and providing caring services for animals, and they're less about focusing on providing animal control services to cities. And unfortunately, I think the cities would say that that has shown itself over the course of years. And because our focus will be on providing services to cities, and obviously for the caring and sheltering of the animals as well. But because we're agencies, because we're municipal governments, or in the case of the county, a local government, we understand the needs of the cities more acutely, and we can meet those needs, we think, on a better level.
So July 1?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, I understand that Ontario and Chino may be the, for lack of a better word, the founding members of the entity. Where would the new facility be built? What city are they looking at?
It will be built in Ontario.
Okay.
Oh, and yes, they are the first two members of the JPA, but Montclair has been involved in this from the very beginning.
Right. No, as you've shared with us a few months ago, last year in 2024, early part of 24, I believe. So the other member agencies that are considered joining, it's in their best interest then to do so by July 1 of 25 for purposes of getting shared ownership in real property, correct?
Yes, I believe that the rule will be this, that if you join the JPA before July 1, 2025, you will have a percentage interest in the real property. If you join after July 1, 2025, you won't have a percentage interest in the real property, but you would have a percentage interest in other properties acquired after that date. Yes. Or if you're an agency that left the JPA, then other agencies could buy your share.
So as they join after July 1st, 2025, newer developments they would have a stake in. Us as Montclair would have the existing or the newly built facilities and the continuing newly built ones as well.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be our skin in the game. Yeah, I just a general comment to kind of piggyback on what my colleague, Councilman Rue said. I think this would be a better option for residents. As the city manager alluded to as well, this would be a major significant improvement in services for our residents and a better treatment of animals in the area. Real quick question, though. The 25% increase fee that you estimate for 26, 27, that's if we stayed with IVHS?
Yes.
Okay, that's what as I was taking notes, you said that, and I kind of got confused, but all right, I appreciate it. So
Now, again, that's my speculation based on my understanding of their implementation of the cost averaging for use of their services, adding on fees that they've deferred for this next year because they were afraid of sticker shock for the agencies, and the anticipation that other agencies are going to leave.
So what specifically did they say that our demand increased? Did they give you any substantive result of calls?
No,
or
that was
service?
a conversation of 2 years ago, and it was just an email saying that your service demand has increased, and so you should anticipate an increase based on that provision in the contract.
All right. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm done.
Okay, Councilmember Mendez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions or more statements also. When I was the Public Works Superintendent, I remember the monthly payments were at $12,000, and I had talked to Mr. Starr about a few things, and that was 2016. It was $12,700 a month to Inland Valley Humane Society, and I thought at that time, you know, we weren't getting what we were paying for, and because you never see anybody out canvassing the neighborhoods, checking for unlicensed animals. And I know that, you know, where I live now, I've been there over 5 years and not one person has ever come to my house. But either way, it's just incredible to see the increase, though, to go from $12,700 a month to, I believe, IVHS will be charging the city for currently 2024-25, $35,667 a month, which is, you know, over $20,000 more. It's just, it makes zero sense to me. I understand with Ontario and Chino both leaving, you know, that they have to recoup some costs, but they need to, you know, dismantle their facility and, you know, and cut their costs, not ours. I mean, not raise ours. As far as like management, you know, I know, Ben, you were talking about, you know, employees going from there to possibly over there. You know, I think it's the management and leadership that will change, you know, how a facility is operated. So hopefully the new people that they are planning to get will do that. Quick question for you, Ed. Will they have an emergency veterinarian on site, and will they be doing spade and neuter also at that facility?
Yeah, the anticipation it will be a full range of services that you already are experiencing with IVHS, and we're just anticipating that the delivery to the agencies will be more intimate.
Okay. And then, you know, for me, I feel like it's a no-brainer to go from paying currently $35,667 to possibly, I know we have to put a $2 million deposit down, which will come out of the lease revenue bonds. But then we'll be paying quarterly for 10 years, potentially more, 15 years possibly. So that would, you know, break down to, you know, be less than $19,000 a month technically at that time. And then we'd have a ownership of part of that. So that's a great thing. So other than that, those are just my comments and my experiences that I've had with them. So thank you. I appreciate the report.
Thank you. Ed, on the question on the percentage breakdown, Montclair's 10%, is that every 5 years gets reassessed based on population? I thought I read it here
For the
someplace.
ARC JPA? No, the 10% would be a constant number. 4.3 million is the top end of our capital contribution.
Right, but the voting share is a 58%, 28%, 10% for Montclair, 4% for county. Obviously, that can change if other
So
agencies join.
the voting share will only change if more agencies join the JPA.
Oh, so there isn't like every 5 years there's a reassessment of the population, if Ontario's
No,
population grows?
no, it's
or-
based on your capital contribution.
So it does not change.
So our 4.3 million represents 10% of the 43 million. So that will be consistent
Okay.
throughout our membership in the JPA.
Okay, I wrote that. Um, obviously, Humane Society, I've been with Montclair for many, many years, and I think in the past they've done a lot of good services when it came to animal care. Um, Last few years, that philosophy has changed, especially with the current administration that's there. The disappointment has been, especially in the last 2, 3 years that I've been involved, is that when we ask questions, we don't get any answers back. And we raise concerns, uh, no reaction, no interest of our concerns. When we went to a meeting late last summer, City Manager Starr and I went to, along with Chino. Chino was there, Chino Hills, not Ontario, they weren't invited. And when the city manager raised some of the issues, concerns that we as cities have had, and we've been addressing this for the last 1 year, one of the board members immediately attacked City Manager Starr at that meeting. So this is a divorce, come down to it. And we have other vendors in the city that we pay. They obviously provide a good service, but when we call them, we need information from them, they provide it to us. IVHS, I suspect that at least 75% of the operations budget probably comes from the 11 member agencies. Am I correct, Ed? 75% or closer to 90%?
Yeah, so just to give you an example, with Ontario and Chino leaving, that was an immediate $3.5 to $4 million decline in annual revenues.
Right.
And with Montclair and these other agencies leaving, if they do choose to leave, it will be well above $5 million in loss in 1 year.
Right.
Going forward.
So we're paying very large portion of your operations costs the cities are, and we don't have a voice at the table. We're not asking for a voting voice. We're just asking for a voice at the table where we can address our issues, our concerns, and they're not interested. So what I've learned is that if you're not interested, then we don't need to be part of that organization anymore. So I'm very happy that Ontario and Chino, and I'll give Ontario the credit because they were the leaders of this, because they got a letter and they were being kicked out. And of course, so they decided to take the lead. And of course, we asked, hey, give us another year so we can get this thing going in 2026, and dead silence from IVHS. You were to think that, they'll let the three of us continue on for another year and at least to get our money so they can figure out how they're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
Speaking of pay for it, because we went to the meeting last summer and we were told that they will release their budget in January. They'll let us know in January, which is last month, what the plan was and how are they going to make up the loss of Ontario and Chino funds. Have you heard anything, Ed, since then?
Well, not the budget, but they did give us the 15% increase that we should anticipate. That was forwarded to us in January.
Yeah, okay, got it. So overall, this is, I think, a good deal. I know that Mayor Leon is the chair of the board. His wife is Sherry Leon, if you never met Sherry. She's an animal lover. And what I've learned is when the wife or a spouse of an elected official who's strongly supportive of something, then that message goes up to that spouse member who is an elected official. So they have a lot of plans for the permanent shelter they want to do. I think they want to have some form of a animal medical provider on campus, and then they want to have activities, animal activities where the public can engage with the animals on campus as well. That's going down the future. Right now, it's a temporary facility, which is a tilt-up building in South Ontario, if I'm correct. And that'll be a 3-year lease. They've already executed that. And so I suspect that in 3 years from now, they'll have the permanent facility built. So I won't bore with you with that, but there is a board again, and I'll remind everybody that the way this board works on the ARC is that Montclair will only have 10% voting privilege, meaning that City of Ontario will have 58%, if I'm correct. So if Chino and Montclair and the county vote no, Ontario votes yes, it passes because of Ontario's weight. Just make everybody aware of that.
That's just population.
But I do need to add clarification. So When it comes to fiscal matters, such as
Right.
adopting the budget and other other fiscal issues, each agency has one vote.
Right.
So the weighted vote only applies to all other
Right.
non-fiscal related matters.
So, but again, I will say, we don't have a voice at the table with the Inland Valley Humane Society. We're paying almost $500,000 right now. We've already given them money for their capital improvements, so we won't get that money back, unfortunately. But again, we never had a voice at the table. So in this case, at least we have a voice at the table. There is a public meeting. Anybody can join that public meeting. You can do a public records request if you want documents. So I very much support this. And in regards to the board itself, again, I'd like to serve as the permanent member of this board, if it's okay with the council. This board meets on the first Thursday of the month. It meets at 9 o'clock in Ontario City Hall. And so my question to my council colleagues, I know Councilman Rue showed an interest. I don't know anybody else has shown an interest to be on this board. Anybody else? It's at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday to be the alternate. Anybody else raising their
I
hands?
could work that out. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for the item as
Before we
presented.
go, I got a bunch of speaker requests.
Oh.
Is there a reason? Councilman Mendez, do you have something else you want to bring up real short?
Yeah, it was just real short. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that I know that Ed also looked into like the upland animal shelters. He looked into the Ontario Old West End, which is ran by a nonprofit that's over off of Mission. And we also spoke recently about, you know, the other locations in Devore, in Big Bear, and then Beaumont, their new facility, that this would be the best choice and it's the best, you know, thing for it. And that was it. And
Okay.
hopefully if we canvass people out there.
Okay, and then Councilman Lopez, got something short?
Yeah, just a quick comment. You stated this was a divorce. I was going to ask who had custody of the kids. But in addition to that, I want to state, we asked IVHS to produce a budget sometime last year, correct?
Yes.
They did not, correct?
May have a budget, they just didn't provide it to me, but they did give me the cost estimates.
I was just going to say, but yet that gave us a 15% increase, more or less a bill, for that matter, correct? I just, the fact that you asked for a budget, what wasn't clearly handed over, a copy, but yet they were quick to hand us what the equivalent is a bill, I think is telling of how the
Well-
mentality of the board is.
Yeah, it just, again, they're not being forthcoming with information, especially with us, the cities that pay 9% of their bill. You would think that they will disclose all the information. And they're technically a nonprofit organization. They're not a for-profit. I understand for-profit, they're a nonprofit, but that's the way it is. That's where they went. So with that, again, I would ask, anybody else interested in being an alternate member on this? Bill wants to be the alternate? Okay, then we'll have Bill serve as the alternate.
Thank you.
And then let's have a motion. Who wants to make a motion?
I
for the
made a
entire-
motion
Second.
for the item.
Second.
So the motion is for approval, and then with myself as permanent and Councilman Rue as alternate. Am I correct? Is that part of the motion? Okay, then we will vote. Adopt at 5-0. Includes myself as the permanent, and then Councilman Rue as the alternate. And of course, we'll add this committee assignment onto our regular city council assignments we have. So it'll be a brand new one. Now we go down to communications. I know I have the police department. Before I go to police department, I know there was a gentleman here talked about Monte Vista real quick. I don't know, Chief, are you coming up for the badge? You doing the badge? Maybe you can talk after the badge. You can discuss Monte Vista, what you guys are doing out there.
Good afternoon, council members of city staff. Regarding the trucking concern, we are still working that area for violators. I won't put a number. We don't work off of how many numbers of citations will be effective. Fact of the matter is, our officers are aware of the issue. They're working it as they can. We're receiving some training for key members of the department to provide training to the entire department for other commercial violations as we step up our enforcement on that as well. I do have to state that it is not the only operation we have going on. If the officer that's working that area gets sent to a call for service, they're not going to be able to conduct traffic enforcement as a full-time duty up there, especially with the trucks. So it is we do address the problem as we can, but it's not something we're conducting surveillance on all the time. And I do understand that there are violations that occur. We're not going to catch every single person, but we are aware of it. It's a part of our staff's briefing during their briefing sessions. I put out a reminder this morning to continue to work the area, so we are working that area for those violators.
Right.
So, and that number of citations that we have that on file, that number that in the report I produced, that doesn't. It's probably more than that. That's a primary violation. If there are other violations, the statistics will not show that that's the primary violation. For example, if there's a red light violation or speeding and also an overweight vehicle violation, that won't necessarily show up. So that number is likely and probably is higher than that. And a lot of times when you stop especially a commercial vehicle, there are other, there's usually other issues, and a vehicle code would trump that, and our statistics system would trump the charge of the municipal code. Whether it be driving out of class, which we do come across once in a while, not a proper class license for the vehicle, or equipment violations, or unlicensed driver, et cetera.
Okay.
So that number is likely higher than that, but it's still something we're working.
Okay, City Manager Starr, do you have anything you want to add to this too?
Yeah, I did want to comment before the chief goes into the Battle of the Badges, and that is that I have directed the Public Works Department to look at all of the signage on Monte Vista Avenue so that it can be accentuated and corrected in some instances to further emphasize the prohibition against trucks going down into south on Monte Vista Avenue. So for example, if you're coming off of the 10 freeway and you look at the signage related to no trucks as you're going east off the Monte Vista Avenue off-ramp, it says no trucks Palo Verde. Well, I don't think, one, people know what that means. Where's Palo Verde? So it doesn't really communicate the proper message. So we're looking at all of the signs. We're looking at redrafting all of the signs and putting up more signs to emphasize, including looking at other manual on uniform traffic control device measures that we can take related to perhaps stripage on the streets, messages on the street itself that say no trucks. They're also looking at a permanent electronic sign, a reader sign that constantly says no trucks south of the I-10 freeway on Monte Vista Avenue, and any other solutions and recommendations that we can look at in relation to addressing the trucks. We also probably need to look at the 10,000-pound limitation, because many of the vehicles, I understand the big rigs are not part of that, but many of the vehicles that we are receiving complaints on are also Amazon trucks that are, when they're filled with packages, that they're above 10,000 pounds. More and more people are relying on ordering online as opposed to brick and mortar, and so more and more trucks are on the street, box trucks that are delivering packages. And each one of these, while there's an exception in the ordinance related to allowing them on residential streets and other streets where there are restrictions related to trucks, they're still all above 10,000 pounds, and we need to weigh as to whether or not that limitation needs to be raised. So that's one other thing that we are looking at. I also want to say that the city has not applied for any grant related to buying homes on Monte Vista Avenue. What we've looked at long-term is that as homes come for sale on Monte Vista Avenue, particularly at the northern end south of San Bernardino on the east side, we would acquire those homes one by one so that ultimately we can widen San Bernardino at that point to try and provide better left turn and right turn access and north-southerly southerly traffic circulation. So that's our objective. And while while the Public Works Department did make an offer that if you want to sell your house, we'd be willing to buy, it wasn't pressure, so certainly, at least I hope it wasn't inferred as putting pressure on a homeowner in relation to that.
Great, thank you.
And I'll add one more thing to that. Is the gentleman that spoke, I understand that he's experiencing this issue. It does always assist us if you call at the time of the violation is occurring. Not only now, again, if it's a moving vehicle, by the time we get there, there's a likelihood sometimes that it will get out of the area before we're able to get there. But it also provides us a statistical advantage to knowing when the time of day when these things are occurring and when the calls are coming in as well. So I encourage anyone in the public to make that call. Big trucks are sometimes slow moving, and if we get a decent description, especially time of day, we still might be able to catch up to it by the time that call comes in.
All right, great. Councilmember Lopez, you have something short?
Yeah, just a follow-up. In a conversation we had with respect to the numbers that you were producing, could you provide a subsequent report of the updates from those that hadn't been processed yet, so we can see what numbers may have increased from those 23?
I can always run that statistic to find out the number of citation, but the number of citations does not constitute whether it's successful enforcement or not. Because sometimes, like I stated, some of the stops that we make, we won't issue a citation on, especially if it's a mistake or if there's a valid reason that the driver is in the area, or if you had a mechanical issue or what have you. So that number will always, that number won't reflect the exact number of trucks that we're enforcing there. I mean, that's a number I can provide, yes, but the higher the number doesn't necessarily mean success. My determination of success on that would be that the number actually goes down, but we're making, because of our enforcement efforts. So if the number goes down, it might be something that's a
Word's
positive.
getting out.
Right. We did have the extra signage out there for a period of time. We had to use our message board trailers. I think that in the personal side of it, I think a truck driver who's not familiar with the area, who gets off the freeway, like the city manager stated, may not purposely, might not have time to go into the municipal code and look at which roads and which highways. A lot of it, I believe, is a mistake. That I think the signage, we all agree the signage is probably the best step a great step in the right direction. Because they may miss that 5-ton sign that's on the side of the road, and it might be a mistake. So some of those stops that we make, depending, not every stop is, sometimes it's an advisal or sometimes it's a education for a driver, depending on what happened. So the number is, the reason I'm saying all this is the number may go up, it may go down, it may stay stagnant, but it doesn't mean we're out there conducting, checking the area and conducting the stops as well. But if a driver has a valid reason for any violation that is reasonable, sometimes just the education goes a lot further than writing the citation for it as well. I believe the 18-wheelers, I think those truck drivers that are frequent the area know that they're not supposed to be there, and they do probably try to sneak in there and get down there because it's faster than taking Central, but I think some of it is a mistake as well that hopefully the signage will really put a stop to.
Well, and I appreciate the city manager stating that signage was being looked at. My next question would just simply be, when do you anticipate those new signs being installed, made and installed? Good.
They're currently doing design now, so we haven't come up with exact format that we want for the sign, so it'll probably be a little while in ordering them. So I would think probably don't expect it until the summer.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. This is the first I'm hearing of that, so I appreciate that. Random question. Any effectiveness to having an officer stand out there with a radar gun with some of these? I mean, just a scare factor. Is that effective at all?
Well, if you're talking about for speeding violations in the area, well, an officer wouldn't be standing out there with a radar gun. They'd be parking and working radar. Of course, like I said, it's per availability. So if the officer gets sent to another call or another investigation or anything, they wouldn't be there. Of course, it's a deterrent. Also, if it's too obvious the officer's out there, then the drivers aren't going to commit the violations. And we're hoping those repetitive drivers that go through, just like anyone else, they see an officer there one day, they'll have that long-term memory to understand, okay, there's usually an officer parked here. I need to be careful. I need not to go down that street. We are in the process of obtaining some radar equipment as part of our OTS, Office of Traffic Safety grant, which will be instead of just the handhelds, it'll also be radars that are actually mounted in the police vehicle, which are forward and facing and rear facing, so that the officers would be able to pick up the speed of vehicles, not just sitting there stationary, but while they're driving around, someone approaching from the rear or driving the opposite direction. So we're hoping that's effective as well, rather than someone parked at a location. As we know, at that location's a little tricky. There's only a couple spots you could really park and work radar at that location, but it's also another tool that we're obtaining through this OTS grant that we're currently
And
performing on.
just one more thing, one thing you shared with me in a prior conversation since we discussed this in October. An officer driving down the street doesn't necessarily mean they're there for a truck violation. They could be en route to another call.
Correct.
And I do want that mentioned out there as well, because I understand that. If there's a call
Correct.
in the southern end of town on Holt and Monte Vista, they obviously got to drive by.
Right.
So-
A common concern that we receive is, you know, I saw this XYZ happen and an officer kept driving. Sometimes we're responding to a call for service or someone in our lobby or a report call or a burglary call or an alarm in progress. And sometimes the officer has to outweigh the public safety aspect to the fraction that they may be witnessing. Of course, we have what's called unavoidable traffic. Sometimes, you know, if you're responding to even a felony call and there's a driver that appears to be intoxicated or driving recklessly, then we'll divert to that, but not always as an officer. Just because an officer's out driving around doesn't mean they're available. They might be en route to doing something else as well.
And again, I appreciate your officers on this issue. I do understand his frustration, though, as a resident.
Yes,
but thank
I
you.
do as well. A tanker truck shouldn't be driving down there even if they're delivering
Councilman
fuel.
Mendez,
They
do
should
you have
be
a question,
taking
Councilman Mendez?
extra routes, yeah.
Just a couple other things. Just, as a superintendent, Hudson and I used to actually review the truck route once every 5 years. And with that, also the speed limits and everything else, and do sign adjustments as needed. But as you mentioned, you know, I understand the residents' concern, but a police officer would have to witness the truck going into the no truck area, follow them all the way till they exit, and then they could pull them over because they could be doing a delivery, as mentioned.
Right.
And if they do a delivery, they're allowed to do that.
Well, yes, normally, I mean, following the person may not be an effective tactic. Usually we'll make the stop wherever it's effective. Right there on that stretch of road, we probably would wait to turn our lights on. That's another thing too, is when you're conducting a traffic stop, you have to conduct it in a safe area. So you kind of project it. So if you may not want to turn your lights on in that part of the neighborhood because there's nowhere for a big rig to pull over and it'll cause a bigger problem. Might wait till they get south down there on Monte Vista where it's 4 lanes or north. But we do that. Usually that investigation is conducted by asking the driver, are you conducting a delivery? And if so, do you have the manifest or do you have the receipt? If it's a box truck, a heavy box truck, there are the heavy box trucks as well. If it's a washer and dryer, where are you going? Okay, I'm going over here to Geneva, then that'll be a valid excuse. But we usually will not follow them to see where they're going because you know, that probably would be time consuming.
No, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. You don't have time to do those types of things.
Yes, it would be a question. It would be, and any truck driver is going to have some kind of paperwork. Usually, whether it be electronic or paper, that'll show where.
That's what I was going to mention is that commercial vehicles.
I apologize. I think we're getting away from, we got
Okay,
too far
no
away.
problem.
The city attorney's looking at me over there. The inquiry's gone a little longer than it should have. I would encourage the resident, the audience, if he wants to talk to the police chief, the city manager after the meeting, and they can help you answer some more questions, but I think we're trying to do everything we can.
Yes, he's been sending me pictures, and they are the big trucks. They are the big,
All right.
the big, huge 18-wheelers.
Great. Okay, let's go down to the item on the agenda, which is the Battle of the Badges, blood drive.
Yes, we are. I'm here to announce the Battle of the Badges annual. In conjunction with the Red Cross Blood Drive. The Battle of the Badges, meaning it's a friendly competition between fire and police to not only have members of the public participate in the blood drive, but also members of the employees with the city. It will be Tuesday, February 25th from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. It will be here at 5111 Benito, but the Montclair Senior Center North Room, just south of us here. And remember, you can visit redcrossblood.org to schedule an appointment. And you can also save about 15 minutes if on the day of the donation or the day of the blood drive, you fill out the questionnaire online, the pre-questionnaire. So we hope to see all of you there, and that's all I have.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
City Attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have the one item as indicated on the agenda, and that's for the council to meet in closed session regarding pending litigation involving Jaquez versus Montclair.
Thank you. City Manager.
Well, I do want to give you a quick update on the property at 10643 Mills Avenue. This is a property where the city was attempting to get a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction against the property owner so that they could make some corrections to the property. Those improvements would include hiring a security 24/7, maintaining the perimeter fence around the property, maintaining and monitoring all access points to the property, disposing of all junk, trash, and debris at the property, and abating any violations related to the original notice of order to vacate. The city was seeking receivership in addition to the preliminary injunction. Unfortunately, I have to advise you that the court decided that they wanted another meeting on this and therefore did not issue the receivership or the preliminary injunction at this point in time. So we have been advised by the owner of the property that he intends to sell, and there has been conversation between the city and the city prosecutor with that prospective owner. Unfortunately, obviously, because he doesn't own the property at this point in time, they can't make improvements. In the meantime, we've encouraged the property owner to try and make improvements to the Mills Avenue property in response to the injunction, and that is not occurring. So we have ordered today that there be a notice in order to abate the property. Mr. Fondero, the city's code enforcement manager, has been working on that today. Hopefully that will be issued this week to the property owner. And if the property owner is unwilling to respond, then that empowers the city to take the necessary corrective action so that we can remedy at least some of the physical issues with the property, such as the debris and even security, if the city is willing to upfront the cost of security and then seek reimbursement from the property owner or the subsequent property owner down the road, if that's the direction we want to go. But we are making efforts to, again, address this property, which is an eyesore and serves as an attractive nuisance to a number of individuals in the area that loiter there, as well as break into that building and create a lot of problems for that general area, including Oak Glen Avenue and along the San Antonio Wash. In fact, 2 weeks ago, the city painted out all of the graffiti on the wall on the east side of the Wash. I drove by today and all that graffiti is back. I do have to say that the property owned by the Pomona Unified School District, it isn't in total disrepair any longer, and in fact, the gate, the fence surrounding the property at the end of the cul-de-sac on Oak Glen looks to be, as of today, to still be in repair. I didn't see any holes in it, but I did actually see somebody climb over it and traverse across the property, so they're still getting access. I think maybe they gained access off the channel side as opposed to the cul-de-sac end at Oak Glen, but we are keeping an eye on it. We are trying to take proactive issues. The police have been down there, have made some arrests, including somebody who had, I believe, a play rifle. An arrest was related in relation to that, and they continue to monitor the area and look for any opportunity to address any crime activity that they are seeing and witnessing in that area. So we will continue to monitor it and be responsive.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. City Manager?
That is the last item I
Okay,
have.
thank you very much. One will announce that we will have a special city council meeting here on Monday, March 3rd at 5:30.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I can say, we did look at reaching out to, I believe Mr. Chavez was asking that there be I guess we recommended a community meeting. I don't believe that that's the direction he wants to go. He would, I presume,
Yeah.
rather see more
Okay.
proactive response down there, and we are trying to deliver that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll begin with having a special city council meeting on Monday, March 3rd at 5:30 in these chambers for the mid-year budget review. Any opposition to that? If not, so ordered. I just want to announce that on March 1st, Montclair High School will have their annual Miles Montclair. I believe I sent an email to folks here, so you received that. At the last San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, we had a workshop on the possible future extension of Measure I. Currently, Measure I which is half-cent sales tax that pays for the transportation projects in this county. That expires in 2040. So the board is now considering going back to the voters perhaps in the next election of 2026, asking the voters to extend Measure I beyond 2040 for an additional 30 years. So, but we're still working on that. And next year, we'll know a lot better if that's going to take place or not. I do want to announce I did attend my first meeting as a board member of the Foothill Gold Line Construction Authority, as a non-voting member representing SBCTA. Obviously, Bill and I serve on the JPA board for Gold Line, and Bill is also an alternate member to the governing board as well. I want to say that I appreciate staff that prepared for the heavy rains we had last Thursday. I know first thing Thursday morning, the ramps were out there for the school children, get it out there. And then I know that obviously the rest of the day, you know, with accidents and we had winds out there, public works and police and fire taking care of the issues on that date. I did do a ride-along with the Montclair Police Department a couple weeks ago. We so happened to pull a truck over, a small box truck over on Monte Vista Avenue, and that person was issued a ticket because it's not supposed to be on Monte Vista, and of course there were some other issues related to that. And then last Tuesday, I attended the Chaffee Joint High School Board meeting that was held here at Montclair High School. And then finally, I want to recognize the police department because several weeks ago we had major vandalism on the Shark at Alman Hoffman Park, and arrests have been made related to that vandalism. And I appreciate not just the chief, but the team, the SET team, for apprehending those suspects. And I believe at least 3 are now. One's an adult, and 3 others are juveniles, and so at least 3 of the 4 are been apprehended. Maybe I shouldn't say that because the 4th person will know that now. And all right, shh. Okay, that's enough. Hopefully, not watching the council meeting. Let's start with Councilmember Bill Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to keep it short tonight due to the lateness of the hour. We still have a personnel meeting. On Saturday last, I did attend the Black History Month celebration, which was at Alma Hoffman Park. I was there about 10:30. It began at 11, ended at 4. I left around 2. Most of the vendors seemed very, very pleased. Good presentations. It's great that we're able to do this. The Senator Susan Rubio did show up at the event and spent quite a bit of time. We appreciate Montclair Fire, Montclair Police Department for being there with some demonstrations for the people who were attending. I also note one of the vendors, I'm sorry I did not write the name down, it was a food vendor, had the placard on the side that they are part of World Central Kitchen. That is a nonprofit founded by the chef Jose Andres. Their mission is to go and just try to help feed people, and they've been doing so with the fires, especially the ones over in Altadena area. They've done a great job. I was pleased to see that a local vendor is a part of that because it means a lot when you look at what they're trying to do. And as one who was down volunteering and helping with the fires, I know how appreciated their services were by people who were completely burned out of their house. No driver's license, no credit cards, in many cases, no cash. So they at least were able to get a good meal. So I appreciate all of that. It was a well-done event. As an aside, on Gold Line, I was reelected as the Secretary Treasurer for the Gold Line JPA. I'll continue to move forward in that role with the support of all those who are part of the Gold Line. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your support as well. And Gold Line is still moving forward. We will face some challenges in the future, but it will happen. Maybe not as quickly as we'd like, but it will happen. Thank you.
Councilmember Rue. I'm with Councilmember Bill Rue. Councilmember Ben Lopez, excuse me.
You'll get there eventually. Real quickly, Are all military banners up?
No,
Are they still in the process of?
they are in
Okay.
process. They've been ordered. We're still waiting for okays on the proofs. So, yeah, they're close.
Okay. Just piggybacking a little bit, and I don't want to belabor the issue or the discussion, the wash that is in question near the Mills site and Holt site that the city manager went into, I will be sending over some pictures of some wrought iron gates that kind of secure an area of the wash that prevents anybody from going in or out. I will send you those pictures because I want to inquire if city staff paid for the installation of those fences, or I believe Army Corps of Engineers, right, that owns the wash? Who owns the wash?
But under bridge, to stop
right.
trespassing underneath the bridges specifically?
Yes, it would prevent them from actually going into the wash, and it's actually near the bridge.
Yeah, it's likely that the city acquired those
Okay.
and installed them.
Okay, I'll send you the pictures, and then I'll appreciate a follow-up on that.
We don't use wrought iron any longer because they managed to torch through them quite easily. So that's not what we install any longer, but it's probably something that has been there for a while.
It does look like it's been there for a while. And then you had mentioned the receivership issue. You recall about a year and a half ago, I inquired about the property on San Jose Street, and you had stated that we would pursue receivership with respect to that property. Do you have any status on that particular issue or home?
I do, but I don't recall the disposition at this point in time, so I'll get a follow-up on
Yeah,
that.
I'd appreciate that. Let's see. And then while we're at it,
What I do, they've sold it.
okay.
Yeah, so I'll follow up further, though.
I don't, they're in the, I was there today. They're in the process of trying to see if that can go to be sold for the
Yeah.
benefit of the individual who owns there or lives there. We had investors looking at it today, so there's progress being made, but it's pretty slow and still trying to protect the gentleman, his interest as well.
Is the back end of the property secure now or still open?
It's still open on both ends.
Okay. And then I not to be a pest about things, I am genuinely interested in understanding what the city has on the books by way of the PD with respect to demonstrations, protests, and in particular, someone who is, if they don't have a permit, on streets facing traffic, blocking streets, failure to disperse, unlawful gatherings. If I could get what we have on the books with respect to those, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to see the follow-up on that. I know I'd sent an email to both.
That's a broad statement. I don't know what it is that you mean by, there are many, many laws that somebody can violate during the course of a march, and it would take an interminable amount of time to research that to determine what those laws would be. I think generally what we have is a ordinance that relates to assemblies, and that's probably the best we can give you, because beyond that, it's really up to the police department and based on the circumstances at any time, how they respond and react to any given situation in relation to marchers. For the most part, if they're peaceful, you want to allow them to do what they are doing, even if they don't have a permit. As long as they're peaceful, it's probably better to allow them to engage in that activity. If they get out of hand, then the police department has to make spur-of-the-moment decisions. There's just no way of saying what that getting out of hand could possibly be.
And I'm fine with anyone that chooses to protest and walk down the street. I'm fine with that. That's why I specifically wanted to hone in on going opposite traffic, and which would impede the flow of traffic if there was an order to fail to disperse or failure to disperse, or a gathering was deemed unlawful. What then is basically what I was getting at. I will gladly accept, though, the policy on, or the ordinance on assemblies, if that could be sent to me. But nonetheless, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think maybe the chief can talk about that very brief, but that seems like a very broad request. If you're still requesting, but go ahead, chief.
Hello. Yes, as it pertains to those types of demonstrations, we do have specific policy in our policy manual for First Amendment demonstrations, and it gives guidance on things to consider during those types of events and how to prepare for them. Procedures are not specifically outlined as we have to be fluid in how we respond to these types of events because no two of these events are similar. Is it a sporadic event? Is it something that was planned? Was it a peaceful event that turned, that there may be some agitators that came in? Was it an event that we knew there would be agitators right from the beginning? So all of those things factor into how we respond to something like that. But yes, you know, the violations of the vehicle code or walking into traffic, et cetera, they always exist. Can we make arrests for every single one of those, or will we? I can't answer that. Just it depends on the situation as that's presented to us. We of course will not allow things to get out of control, but sometimes, you know, if it's a flash type of event where there's agitators out there, they may have, if they catch us off guard and it takes us a minute to respond to it, then we're presented with a much different situation than something of a march that we are able to prepare for. Again, we have officer safety to consider, the number of officers working. If we have 3 or 4 officers working at a time when something comes up that we're not aware of, we do have mutual aid that can respond. We do have our own mobile field force team, which is a riot control or crowd control team. We have a county-wide team. So there's several different resources that are available. It's just there's really difficult to answer that question. But we do have a policy manual. It's posted online. There is guidance in it for procedures to handle First Amendment type activity. Whether or not it turns into First Amendment activity, it turns into an unlawful assembly, of course, at that point, notices would be given to the participants prior to any action, if practical, unless it's an assault or something on or a crime that we're witnessing, so that those that don't disperse, hopefully will either disperse or they'll be taken into custody peacefully. But I guess I just complicated the answer to that, but it's really a fluid response. There's a lot of training that we have in handling something like that. So hopefully our guidance would be, especially depending on the age of the participants, if they start walking in the street, our guidance would be you need to keep it back on the sidewalk and give that guidance, which we've had success with in the past on some of these events. Sometimes people will violate the law on these things, and sometimes it's just a notification to do something. But if it turns, you know, if it gets bad, then we'll have to respond accordingly to something like that.
You didn't complicate it one bit. You actually provided a great explanation as to what I was looking for, and I'm glad it's on tape for folks that were inquiring can go back and watch now. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you want a copy of the policy on First Amendment Assembly? Do you want a copy of that at least?
I thought we already got the First Amendment policy, did we not?
Yes, there's municipal code, and then
Yeah,
there's the actual policy manual for the policy manual is a public document for the police department. But I mean, it's 700-800 pages long, so I can always find things for people normally in there, and I believe it's called First Amendment Assemblies in the policy. I believe that's the title. I might be off on that, but it's somewhere. I can provide that section.
If it's already in that attachment, I did get that email. I don't need you to resend it. I appreciate what you did send, though.
Okay.
On that first time.
Oh, I might not. Okay.
Or if it came from Ed, I'm sorry. It came from, yes.
It
I
might
think
have,
came from-
yes.
Yeah.
Dealt with more the immigration issue.
Yes.
But I'm assuming it applies to everything, because it's one policy with respect to First Amendment, everything.
It provides guidance and things to consider for liability perspective. For you know, the policy manual is created by people with experience in litigation, with experience in law enforcement. It reminds supervisors on what to do. It reminds leaders of the organization on things we need to the training that we need to keep consistent on. And it also just provides guidelines for things to consider on something like that. Now, the laws and the actual training that we go to and everything like that is not in the policy manual. But it does provide a framework for direction of the department on an event like that. And they are unpredictable events, so you know that's probably why it's
No two
more
are
of a
the
broad.
same.
Yeah, it's
I get it.
more of a broad policy. So
All right, perfect.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Councilmember Mendez.
Just a couple things. Last week, I met with County Supervisor Kurt Hagman as an introduction as a new council member. At the same time, I met with one of their council members for Chino Hills, Pete Rogers. So had a nice conversation with those gentlemen and their staff. And then also last week, just took a small vacation, went to Indianapolis, and while I was out there, did a tour of the Capitol, and it was a really nice tour. So if you ever get a chance, it's really neat. That's it.
Okay, finally, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Thank you. I was not able to attend the AQMD Zoom working group meeting, but I'm curious whether anyone else was able to attend, and if so, if there are any good ideas.
I have not, but I understand there's been some modifications made based on
Yes.
all the complaints or the opposition letters received. I don't know exactly what the modifications are to those two rule amendments. So I suspect we'll hear more about it.
Well, the alternatives are you have your choice. If you want gas, you can keep gas. If you want electricity, you go electricity. New development is encouraged to go all electric, though.
Okay, cool.
Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Thank.
Okay, we have Personnel Committee minutes in the agenda, and we will now go into closed session.